what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drewbie Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I have seen it, heard it, and lived it all. And still, I want to hear your stories. That's why I created the show, to bring you on, tell all the wildest stories that we know about in sales, bring the community together, and let you know that you're not alone. Sales is a crazy journey, and the opportunity to connect with other like-minded, success-driven individuals has really made a difference in my life, and why I created this show, so that I can bring the craziness to you and your life and journey here in sales. Today's guest is a personal friend of mine, someone I've had the pleasure of working with for the last 5 years. I've seen him do some pretty wild things when it comes to sales and business and growth. He's also someone I know who truly cares about serving his community, which is why I wanted to have him come on. And I'd like you guys to welcome my friend, Mr. Steve Apodaca. What's up, brother?
What's cracking?
Pushing P, baby. Pushing P.
Little less enthusiasm right there, right? I was sick like 4 days ago, so I'm like, yeah.
Hey, man, when you're sick, though, that's the crazy thing about sales is no matter what you're going through, you still got to push and handle business. And I know you're out there pushing P with the best of them, man. And when I say pushing P, it's fun because that means pushing phone sites. Phone sites is the software you and I actually originally kind of got connected through. And it's an opportunity that we've had to really grow and help a lot of people. But we'll get into that a little bit later. The first thing I want to know, Steve, how did you get into sales, bro? What was it that got you into sales?
Oh, gosh. Service is what got me into sales, interestingly enough. I'm a third-generation landscaper out here in Las Vegas. We've been in the Valley since the 30s. I got really good at doing our service-based work for our customers, which was like repairs. You know, a fire had to get put out, and they'd have to send somebody to a house in order to serve that client. And for some reason, I always upsold all of our clients. I would just look for problems, unforeseen possibilities that could potentially harm our customers, and I would say, hey, by the way, did you know that such and such poses a risk to you? Or did you know that you could be getting more efficiency through this, or whatever the case may be? And I was upselling like crazy, to the point to where I actually exited my dad's company. I was running his company. Right before he retired, I exited and I went to a service-based only model, which was just repair. It was like irrigation repair. They called us, the fancy word was an irrigation tech. So it was service-based, so they would call. We'd charge just to step out of the truck. But I started using that, that same service, that servitude attitude to those people. And man, I ran a $300,000 operation out of the back of a pickup truck with 50-cent parts. Come on. So, upsells were crazy. And so that was like, I didn't really consider myself sales at the time. But when the economy crashed, I decided, let me see what corporate America does. And that was definitely not sales. That was just showing up and punching the clock. But regardless, there were KPIs and things like that and measuring metrics, and I was blowing the entire. I actually set a lot of company records in that, just from following that same servant attitude. And then when that opportunity left, I was like, screw corporate America. I gave him the mental middle finger because some weird shit happened. And once that happened, that was my last life-defining moment. I said, I'm never going back to a corporate job again. I'm never going to put my livelihood in the hands of somebody else. And I went into direct sales, which was through life insurance. So I've been doing that now for almost 9 years. But yeah, since direct sales, that's where people buy you. They don't really buy the product; they buy the solution. And when you have to go out there and generate your own leads, you have to sell yourself, the product, the solution. You have to sell, you have a lot more selling to do when you're doing, those types of sales. So that's essentially the background of where my sales has come from.
I love that, man. And you're so right about the fact that direct sales is selling you. And that's the cool thing about sales is people buy from people, and they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And when you go out and you do a good job and you provide an amazing service, that word of mouth, that level of trust increases, and you get the referrals and you get to grow, right? That's the benefit of running a good operation. And yet still you have to go out and you got to sell, because if people don't know you, you're not putting your word out there, letting them know the value that you can bring to them, then they're buying it from somebody else. And that's one of the things that I love about phone sites is, and really where we got connected was like, hey man, we're great at sales, we're great at service. How do we find more people that need what we do? And that's where we got it. It was like, well, let's go out and let's build some websites and do some marketing and so much more than just a website, but really just an ability to create a platform where people can connect and grow and get an opportunity to learn from the products and services we provide. With that said, we've had some crazy sales in the tech world, and I know for one, myself in the insurance world have had some crazy sales. Man, what's your craziest Call the Damn Lead story?
It's actually one of the reasons why we're here on this podcast is I'll elaborate on the story that I mentioned in the comment section there. So I had just come off my biggest stint ever. Over a 6-month period, I wrote $150,000 of life insurance on my personal pen. I built a team, a personal downline of 150, and I was training my sideline. Actually, as my partner at the time. We had a team of 450 agents. We were doing about $500,000 a month in life and annuity sales. And somebody with their panties in a wad, with the flick of a button, shut our businesses off. That's when I started realizing like the intricacies and the egos and the politics of the industry. And when you start stepping on the wrong toes, people with big sticks want to come after you, right? Well, long story short, I was not able to write business for about 4 months. Luckily, I had been saving, so we were just living off of savings, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And when you're moving contracts, carriers they don't allow you to write business for 6 months after you've left. After our businesses were shut off, we had nothing. I'll never forget it. My partner, we ended up building our own IMO. And he's like, hey, I got our first contract, which was actually a really known carrier. We don't need a name drop here, but it was a really known carrier that none of us had ever written business. It was a brand. It was that, our previous organization, we had quite a few options and carriers. So there wasn't like a lot to choose from, but we did find one that was solid. And I'll never forget, he's like, hey, we got contracts. And I'm like, cool. At least we had one. So I'm like, cool, let's get some leads. And at this time, we're 4 months after I hadn't been able to work, right? And so I'm starting to dwindle down on our savings and things like that. And I was on a very shoestring budget, and I said, give me some 50-cent leads. These were like 4-year-old leads, 3 and 4-year-old leads. Bought a stack, bought about 500 of those suckers, and got to dialing, right? Didn't even have a script. I was just so excited to start dialing. I was just like, I got people, right? At some point in time, they did express interest to get protection. So that's all I had. That's all I needed to do is follow up on, hey, you filled out a form requesting information. I'm the guy to deliver that to you. Who's the best person to talk to? And I'll never forget it. I called this guy up. He had a thick accent. He's from Nigeria. He's a doctor from Nigeria. And the dude was a complete asshole on the phone. What is this for? Who are you? Why are you calling me? Blah, 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 blah. Long story short, I don't know how, I kept him on the phone, but he puts his wife on. And so I was like, this is why I'm calling. She puts him back on too. And finally, I booked the appointment. I just booked the appointment. That's all my main focus this should be for everybody when you're dialing leads is my main focus is to resolve them, whether it's a yes or a no. I don't like to hem-haw, and I don't like to do follow-ups if I don't have to, although most of my business did come from follow-ups. But at least when I'm dialing, my main focus is to resolve them yes or no, right? Even if it's a no, at least I don't have to continue to squeeze a dry lemon that's not going to produce juice. And so at the end of the day, my goal to resolve this one was, all of them was to either get into the home or get on the phone, right, to sell them, or have them tell me to kick rocks. Somehow he didn't tell me to kick rocks, although he was an asshole. And we booked the appointment, and I show up to this guy's house. Now, mind you, part of your sales process after selling yourself is knowing your products and things like that. So I was still kind of green. I had just gotten this contract. But regardless, the foundation kind of like catch is like, why did you reach out? Well, I wanted protection. Well, if I can show you how to get protection, is there any logical reason why you turn that down? No? Great. You just made a sale, right? And so essentially I went to the house. This was before COVID, when you can still see people face to face. Go to their home, and I closed them. I closed my biggest deal ever at the time, which was about $14,000 in life premium. I wrote a policy on him and his wife. And the crazy thing is, because that lead was so old, I was calling mortgage leads, which is essentially when somebody buys or refinances a home, it's public data. We would hit them up and say, would you like to protect your home from death or disability? The crazy thing is the home address on the lead that I called they didn't even live there anymore. He's like, yeah, we used to live there, but I sold it. So I was like, well, you want to protect this new one? So he's like, sure. So long story short, I write a policy on him and his wife. They're happy, and about 6 months later, I went in and I wrote some IULs on their children for another $1,000 a month premium. And even ironically further, about a month ago, she hit me up and she just got life insurance license and wants to come work with me as well.
Come on.
So crazy stuff. The guy, it started off rocky. Guy was he was rude. He didn't want to talk to me. He was probably regretting that I even called, that he even answered the phone on me at first. But now he's not, because if something happens to him, his wife, or his children, they've got some financial backing. So at the end of the day, all did turn out really well. But that was at the time, and I was just like, holy shit, man! Like, it was just a 50-cent 4-year-old lead, and the guy was a jerk. But it all ended up turning out really well.
That's a hell of a story. And one of my favorite things about sales is when you're just persistent and you don't give a fuck and you just go after it, crazy things happen. And what I really like about that too is the whole mantra of like calling the damn leads. You go through all of this crazy stuff. You have all of these things happen. You're basically in like the pit trying to figure out what the fuck you're going to do. You're like, hey man, give me some old leads. And as we know, the old leads are the gold leads, as they say, because if they didn't solve their problem, they still have a problem, except now that it's significantly worse because it's had time to get worse. I love that story of being able to say, well, hey, man, he was kind of an asshole, didn't really want to talk to me, but I wanted to talk to him, so I did. And then it led to 5 figures in commissions, multiple opportunities, which if this lady's going to come to work for you now, I mean, who knows what that could turn into. I mean, if they had the money to pay that kind of money for policies, they probably know some pretty powerful people too.
Yeah, she sold a pharmacy to CVS. So she's, and her husband's a doctor. So she's got the entrepreneurial mind. He's got the financial backing. She already knows how to build and sell businesses. And so she's already got, some rapport. She's got some credibility in the community. I think she's finally realizing how lucrative it is.
That is freaking awesome. And, again, why sales is such a great industry, because you can literally write your own check. You can make as much money as you want if you make a decision to work hard and put in the effort. And what's really cool, as you and I have learned, is that as you develop yourself and you become a better person, you become a better salesperson. And becoming a better salesperson means making a lot more money and having more opportunity and getting to continue pouring back into the community, and doing so at such a level that your service leads to more people wanting to work with you and sell your product and service because that's how much they believe in it. And I love that story for you, Steve, because I've like witnessed it in real time. I'll never forget when you came to me and you said, hey, I got this opportunity at Phone Sites. Like, what do you think? Should I take it? And I'm like, well, yeah, absolutely. You should take it because you're going to crush it, dude. And now you're one of the top guys in the company. You've been helping for a couple of years now. You're really crushing it. What would you say, if you had to pick one, what would you say is your secret weapon when it comes to sales?
All right, so sales is a little different than calling the leads. But when it comes to sales, my secret weapon has always been the art of asking questions. I call them intentional diagnostic questions. Plus, even in the sales process, when you're in trouble, ask a question. Because people can ignore statements all day long. Matter of fact, we can process millions and millions of, we can only process small bits of information at a time, but we can process millions of bits of emotions. So when you can ask, and asking a question, typically people don't want to be rude assholes and just ignore a question, so they feel prompted to at least respond something, even if they're in a bad mood, right? So my secret weapon for sales has always been asking the right questions at the right time and making sure that those questions are appropriate. That's why I call them intentional and diagnostic questions, because essentially asking the right questions keeps you in charge. It gets them talking more than you talk as well, right? He who talks the most, right? But when you ask the right questions, you can also lead them toward the close, right? Because essentially sales, guys, is us helping people make a better decision for themselves, right? It's helping them make the right decision. So as long as it's moral, legal, and ethical, as long as I'm not selling like crack to kids, that's harmful, right? I want the decision that they make to be good for them, good for the consumer. And because people typically, the reason why they're talking to the salespeople is because they are not the experts. The experts are the ones who need to lead them towards the promised land. And in asking the right questions, you can do that, especially if they're like formatted, intentional, and diagnostic questions. So I would say, to me, asking questions, and to be realistically honest, to be honest with you, it is an art. It is something that has to be perfected. I had to learn a lot from Tom, How to Master the Art of Sales by Tom Hopkins. Sorry,
Hopkins. Yeah,
it is Hopkins, right?
I believe so.
So he was the one that really
myself.
opened my eyes to asking questions, because I mean, hell, he broke a lot of sales records back in the 70s and 80s, right? And so he was one of the main reasons why I started learning to ask questions. And again, it has been an art and skill that has been perfected over time. Now my wife hates it when we get into arguments, because I just start firing questions away, and I always win those ones.
Pro tip, fellas, we're gonna have to cut that one and bring it in, right? If you're in an argument with your spouse, just start asking questions. That'll throw them off.
Start asking questions, baby.
I love that strategy though, because that's one for me personally that I've really used to a lot of success. If I don't know where someone's trying to go, you can ask for clarity. You know, it's such a powerful statement to just say, "Can you expand on that for me?" Or "Can you clarify that for me?" And people will be happy to, because they don't want you to be misunderstood, and they don't want you to sell them something that you don't understand why you're selling it to them. So asking questions and being willing to be straight up, like, you know what? I have no idea what the fuck you just said. Can you repeat that for me? Like,
exactly.
Don't do that all day long, but sometimes if there's an important part of something, you can ask that question and people will be happy to reiterate. And same thing, it's important for you to let prospects know that they have that same authority. That's one of the things that I like to make sure my clients know is like, hey, you can stop me at any point and ask questions, and I will be happy to clarify. And that's something I learned a lot with NLP, and it kind of falls in line with like the straight line from Belfort is like, they're going to be all the fuck over the place. Our job is to bring them into this little centered focus of like one call, one problem, one solution. What's the thing that you're dealing with? And how can we solve it without you having to do the thing that you don't want to do, right? Like, that's the ultimate formula. When we're training people on phone sites how to get leads, is how to get the thing that you want without doing the thing you don't want to do. And if you want to get fancy, add it in a certain time frame, right? It's like, hey, let's do it in this period of time.
In 6 days or less. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, man. And that's the beauty of sales, right? When you learn to add the marketing piece to it, you learn how to write your own check, because as you mentioned, it was like, hey, as in a new industry, my thing was I got to go get leads. And yeah, you can buy leads if you have the funds to do that, but if you don't have the funds, sometimes you need to be able to go out and get the leads yourself. And that's where phone sites or a training like that can be super valuable. One thing too that I always like to think about when it comes to sales, Steve, and this is, some people will say I'm crazy, some people will agree with me, but there's a lot of myths when it comes to sales, a lot of like things that, misconceptions. What would you say is the biggest misconception that you've dealt with when it comes to being in sales and being in this industry?
You gotta have the gift of gab. That's the corniest one. That's the corniest. Well, I don't have the gift of gab, so I'm never gonna be good at it. Look, man, I don't think I'm gonna dig one up anytime soon. But if you guys saw pictures of me when I was in landscaping, you would never have thought that a guy like that would A, be successful, but B, do it in the insurance industry, right? Especially because nobody sits in senior math class thinking, man, I can't wait till I have a career in insurance. Man, it's going to be so epic, right? But yeah, like the misconception of you have to have like this gift to speak and I'd say that's probably the biggest one that I've ever come on. Is like people that are typically scared of selling is they think that they have to be like this slick talking, somebody who's like an extroverted, somebody who's sociable. Man, I don't like people, dude. I like helping people, right? And so like typically what my rebuttal to somebody like that would be like, well, do you like to help people? Yeah. Well, if I show you how to make money helping people, then would you consider it? Yeah. Right? And so it's like, do you like making money? Yeah. Do you like doing it in a moral, ethical, and legal manner? Sure. So if I can show you how to put the words in the right order, do you think you'd be willing to give it a shot? Right? And so I'd say that's probably the biggest one, is just people assuming and thinking that they have to have this persona about them before they would even think that they could be successful in doing sales.
That is a very, very powerful piece of advice. And normally I would ask, like, hey, if you're new to sales, what's a piece of advice you'd give? But I think that's a great one. It's like, hey, you do not have to be super talkative. You don't have to have the gift of gab. You don't have to be a slick talking city son of a gun to be able to make sales. Some of the best salespeople I know, very slow, very calculated, very intentional. And no matter who you are or where you come from, I have met someone from your background that is great in sales. It's all about learning how to use your skill set, your authenticity, and what makes you great. And that's where working with others can help you refine that, right? If you've never read a book about sales or you've never worked with someone in sales that coached or mentored you, then yeah, you're not going to know fuck all. But when you get in and you start working with professionals, especially someone like Steve or myself, that's like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. I can see where your skill sets are strong. I can see where this isn't your forte. So let's mold this out and let's make it fit for you. Again, that's why I love sales. It is literally the one industry that you can build a lifestyle of design, be who you are, how you are, where you are, when you are, and know that you can be successful. Steve, fantastic example, bro. Third generation landscaper, now very successful in insurance, very successful in the tech industry. I mean, you're a shining example, bro. I hope you know that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but it just went over my head. But
no, that's cool, man. And really, that was the big thing I wanted to say is, at this point, I'm super grateful that you took some time out of your day to be here with me, to pour into the community, to share your story and share some of the stuff that has helped you go from landscaper to corporate job to having the freedom to build a life that you want to live and that you're happy and that you get to go out and be an example every day. And so I just wanted to thank you for that and ask the folks, like, if they want to know more about you and what you've got going on, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, Steve-Apodaca, Apodaca.com. That's just my digital business profile. There's 5 or 6 different ways to get a hold of me on there. All of my socials, a booking calendar. You can import me into your phone. There's a button on there. But essentially, as we've mentioned all along, like my main focus here is just to help people. That's one of the reasons why I started working with phone sites, is because somebody coming from the bottom got results using this, and I want to help others get results in the same way that I did, because to your point, like not everybody can go out there and buy leads, right? And as a matter of fact, with the SEC ruling recently, those are going to be like almost non-existent from now on. So the power of marketing yourself and self-generating leads helped me thrive through COVID, which again, my traditional practice was face-to-face. I needed a way to get in front of the masses digitally and virtually once the government said we couldn't go into people's homes anymore. And so when I used phone sites, it came into my life at the perfect time, like a week after the government shut everybody down. Phone sites popped into my life. And I said, this is what I need in order to continue to serve the masses, right? And so because I got so much success with it on my own, when the opportunity arose for me to be able to help other business owners do the same, I jumped all over it. I didn't need the money. I had no intentions. I had just stroked an almost $10,000 check to rebrand my insurance brokerage. But this opportunity arose where now I can serve people like me, right? I can serve the masses. Death ain't going nowhere. Trust me. I can always do insurance, and I get renewals and I get overrides. So it's like, I just felt like there was a greater calling for me here to do this now because I had done it, I can teach others how to do it as well. So if you guys, whoever's in the audience needs some assistance on that, whether it's sales, training, calling the damn leads, there every Saturday I would do a 6-hour dial session to book my week up. So I have experience dialing hundreds at a time for hours at a time, sales, marketing, lead generation, follow-ups. There's been times where I follow up for 16 months, 18 months and closing, 5-figure deals, 15, 20, 30 different touches. So, I feel like I have the all-encompassing experience with this. So, I have an open door policy because I know what it feels like to have to need that guidance, that mentorship and those systems in place. And so that's why I took a role like this, so that I can help others do the same.
Absolutely love that, Steve. Absolutely love you, brother. It's one of the reasons we get along so well and why I'm so excited to be doing life with you, man. And for all of you that are here, make sure you check Steve out. If you're trying to build your own websites, get your own leads for, your own efforts, make sure you go to phonesites.com/Drewbie and check it out. Get yourself signed up. They would be happy to get you plugged in over there. And more than anything, if you have an awesome sales story, if you're in the industry, you've been through some shit, you've got something you want to share, I want you to come on the show and I want to share your story too. So go over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Put your information in. Tell me a little bit about your story. Let's get you booked and scheduled to come on the show. If you liked it, if you got some value, if you enjoyed hanging out with me and Steve today, hit subscribe, share it on the socials, tag us at Call the Damn Leads. You literally can't miss us. We are everywhere. And we will look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. We'll see you next time.